Does God exist? I mean, it's pretty much the biggest, oldest question we've ever wrestled with, right? Well, recently, two of India's sharpest minds, an Islamic scholar and a famous atheist, went head-to-head for 2 straight hours on this exact topic. We've boiled down that entire intellectual showdown to its most critical moments. So let's dive into their duel of ideas.
Okay, so in one corner, you've got Mufti Shamail Nadwi. He is an Islamic scholar who's convinced the answer lies in pure, undeniable logic. And in the other corner, Javed Akhtar, a legendary poet and a very outspoken atheist who says, hold on, any real truth has to stand up to reason and evidence. You see, this isn't just a debate about God. It's really a clash between two totally different ways of searching for truth itself.
So here's our game plan for breaking this all down. First, we're going to look at the ground rules, how they even decided to have the argument. Then we'll get into the main event, the clash over where the universe came from. After that, we'll tackle the most emotional part of the whole thing, the problem of suffering. And finally, we'll see why these two brilliant guys just couldn't find any common ground. Right out of the gate, they hit a wall. Before they could even start debating God, they had to argue about how to argue. I mean, what kind of proof do you even bring to the table when you're talking about something you can't see or touch? This first disagreement really set the tone for everything that came next. Mufti Nadwi makes a really interesting first move here. He essentially wipes the board clean. He says, look, science is out, it only deals with the physical world, and holy books are out because his opponent doesn't accept them. So what does that leave? Just one thing, pure logic. He's not looking for clues that suggest God exists. He's going for a proof that's as solid and undeniable as 2 + 2 = 4. Well, Javed Akhtar immediately jumps in and challenges that whole idea. He says, wait a minute, at the end of the day, all religion asks for one thing, faith. And for him, faith has a very specific meaning. It's not just a strong belief, it's believing something without any evidence, logic, or proof. He says if you have proof, you don't call it faith anymore. It's just a belief, like believing Antarctica exists. So from Akhtar's point of view, the second you ask for faith, you're admitting you can't make a purely logical case. All right, so with his standard of pure logic established, Mufti Nadwi lays out his big argument. It's a classic philosophical idea known as the contingency argument, and he uses this really simple but powerful analogy to bring it to life. He says, imagine this. You're stranded on an island, totally isolated, no people anywhere, and there on the sand you find a pink ball. Your mind would immediately start racing, right? How did this get here? Why is it pink? You'd never, ever just think, oh, it probably just popped into existence. You'd know someone, a creator, must have made it that way. Now he says, just scale that up. The universe is like that ball, just a whole lot bigger. So here's the logical punchline. That ball is what philosophers call contingent. It's a fancy word that just means it depends on other things to exist. It didn't make itself. Mufti Nadwi's point is that the entire universe is just like that. And this chain of what caused that can't just go back forever and ever. Think about it. That'll be like a line of dominoes falling, but with no first domino to push it over. Logic, he says, demands a starting point, a necessary being that doesn't depend on anything else. And that first domino, that uncaused cause, well, that's God. And Akhtar's response to this is just masterful. He doesn't get bogged down in the logic. He just flips the whole analogy upside down with this one sentence. He says, you were surprised by the ball, but you took the island for granted. His point is so simple, but so sharp. If everything needs a creator, why do we stop asking that question when we get to the universe itself? And right there, that's the whole debate in a nutshell. For Mufti Nadwi, an endless chain of causes is a logical dead end. It just doesn't work. So there has to be a final answer. But for Javed Akhtar, claiming you have the final answer, that's the problem. He says the humility in admitting I don't know isn't failure, it's the fuel that powers all human progress and discovery. And this brings us from the heady, abstract world of first causes to something much more raw and personal. This is the part of the debate that hits you in the gut, the problem of suffering. If this first cause is not just powerful but also good, then you've got a serious problem on your hands. Why is the world so full of pain? This is really the heart of it, isn't it? In the debate, they made this question painfully real by talking about children suffering in places like Gaza. Suddenly, it's not a philosophical game anymore. It's a direct challenge to the very character of God. Javed Akhtar lays out the challenge very clearly. He says, look, an all-powerful God could stop a child from suffering, an all-good God would want to stop it. And yet, the suffering happens every single day. For him, this is direct evidence that contradicts the idea of a loving, all-powerful God. He even goes a step further and says that our whole idea of justice isn't some cosmic rule. It's something we humans made up. Because if you look at nature, it's brutal and completely unfair. So how does Mufti Nadwi respond? He offers a classic theological explanation that rests on a few key pillars. First, our perspective is tiny. We can't see the full plan of a God who is all-wise. Second, this life is basically a test, and for any test to mean anything, you have to have the option to fail, to choose wrongly. Third, a lot of suffering is our own fault. It's the result of human free will, and we'll be held accountable. And finally, ultimate justice was never promised for this life. It's something that will be delivered in the next.
So, as you can probably guess, the debate didn't end with a handshake and a clear winner. What it really did was reveal this huge, uncrossable chasm between two completely different ways of seeing the world. When you put their final positions right next to each other, the clash is just so clear. On every major point, where the universe came from, what justice is, why we suffer, where Nadwi finds an answer in God, Akhtar sees a human idea or a question we still need to investigate. One worldview provides a final destination, the other argues that the journey of questioning is the whole point. You know, at the end of the day, this whole thing wasn't just about whether God exists. It was a clash between two entirely different philosophies of how we know anything at all. One approach is about using logic to find that final, ultimate answer. The other is about finding meaning in the endless, ongoing process of asking why. And that really leaves us with one last thing to chew on. In this duel, one man put his faith in a conclusion, the final answer. The other put his faith in the question itself. So, what do you think? Which one takes more faith? To believe in an answer you think you found, or to believe in the value of a search that may never, ever end?